Welcome to the transformation of these two shirts into two separate dresses. Yay! Today's a twofer. I am making two separate dresses out of these two shirts. I originally thought maybe I would combine them and make one dress, but as I looked at it, the fabric just looked too crazy together. But sometimes I just really want to challenge myself, and so that's why I have both shirts being worked on today. And I did actually cut the bottom of the second shirt to make a ruffle for the first shirt, realizing that I hated it. But that ruffle became the inspiration for my second dress. Honestly, it was so quick and easy to make. That was a ridiculously easy dress as compared to this one. The reason this one I struggled so hard is because I really wanted to match all of the colors, all of these checker patterns. I didn't want there to be a big disparity between the different colorways. So I painstakingly matched all of it. I don't know for who, for myself, because who cares? But I did at the time. I decided to start with the sleeves of the shirt. You'd be surprised how much fabric there is in a sleeve. If it's long sleeve, especially, each sleeve is pretty much the same length and width as the one front panel of the shirt. You actually have a lot more fabric than you think because they are much wider than you would think. So I decided to go ahead and just stitch it down the middle and see if I could drape it on my dress form that way. I, a lot of times, have absolutely no idea what I'm going to make. Sometimes that can be really frustrating. Sometimes it can be really fun. I mentioned it several times. The second dress just came to me within seconds. I used the entire shirt and made an entire dress in a couple of hours. This one was a lot of work, and I really had to struggle bust my way through it. And I started draping on the dress form, and I liked it. I liked what I saw. I liked what was happening here. I really liked how the fabric pattern itself was hugging the body. I did go ahead and add some darts in down the middle under each bust in this particular outfit, which I don't have good footage of. But again, I was just trying to be inventive and creative. I don't like to just make a normal thing when I reinvent these dresses because I don't want to take a normal shirt and then turn it into a normal dress. That's my least favorite idea, is just take one boring piece and turn it to another boring piece. Jury's still out for me whether this is a boring piece. I will wear it. I end up really liking it at the end, but for reasons of its comfort and wearability, not so much for its creativity. I mean, it's cute. I'm just struggling. I went ahead and stitched up the pieces that I had pinned up just to make progress and feel like I'm getting somewhere with this. I don't always love the fabric that I choose from these shirts. In fact, most times I don't, and I choose it for that reason because I'm going to push myself to make something you wouldn't think came out of what it was. And this one's pretty much exactly what it is. It's like picnic table checker pattern that is what it is. So nothing horribly inventive is going on here. But I try to take something interesting out of each piece I make. I like to keep pieces of the original shirt so you know that it's a shirt. So you see on the sides, that's where the sleeves at the where they would button up at the wrist. And then the panel I'm putting down here is actually the front panel of the shirt. And so one side's going to have buttons going across and the other side is going to have the buttonholes going across. And so that detail I really like. Now I'm really getting in here because again, I really wanted to match these pieces, match the pattern. So I'm really steaming it out, making sure that there's no wrinkles. Those were sleeves, so they were still quite wrinkly. So now I'm ironing it out. So I once again worked really hard to match these. And if you see my arms go up a couple times, at first I thought maybe I was frustrated. Actually, I was listening to Wicked and I was starting to get into it. If you dare to find me, look to the western sky, that type of thing. I was really getting into it. And then I finally turned it off. I don't know why I turned it off. Maybe I was getting too into it. All right, so I matched all of these little pleats. There it is. And there's those darts I was talking about that I ended up putting in that I really love. Now for the back and for matching up the back to the front. Now you can see how seamless that is. Look at that. Every single piece all the way around. There wasn't one mismatched seam. Very, very, very proud of that, but I was having a really hard time figuring out how I was going to attach the front to the back. I actually had to cut up the back to give myself more fabric in order to make the straps, and because I did that, I needed to clean up that bottom part, so I took a cuff and I put it on the back. I love using a cuff as a back piece that just kind of tapers it all in. I do that quite often with those cuffs. And you'll see on the ironing board how little fabric I have left. I really used everything, all of it. That back piece is the whole back of the shirt. And then the front of the shirt was the pleat paneling going all the way around. And look at that. That's all I have left. These tiny little scraps here and there. So I'm just making my shoulder straps. I made them pretty simple. I didn't do anything terribly inventive with them. I tried. I really did. I put ruffles on it. I took it back off. I put the yoke on it. I took it back off. I had a collar. I took it back off. It just, I really wanted to push it, and it didn't really amount to much more than just a pretty summer dress. And that's okay. I will wear it, so I'm not mad at it. And I made some fun inventive darts, I guess, if you will. And the pleating on the bottom, and matching all of my seams. It really is seamless, if you will. I'm very, very proud of those seams. So we're going to move on to the next dress here in a minute. And just to remind you, that's what the second shirt looked like. I already started cutting it out before I realized that I needed to film this. I was actually, because I was so frustrated about the first dress, I actually didn't film the cutting out of this piece. I decided what I wanted to make. I was ready to make it. And then I was like, oh, this actually is something. I better set the camera up. So the back piece that I'm playing with right there is the actual back of the shirt, and the front of the shirt is going to stay the front of the skirt where it buttons down in the front. And then I have to decide how I'm going to make this all come together. It's going to have a peekaboo front in the front there. It's got that ruffle that almost looks like a shirt top, but it's a ruffle. And there's the back, and it needs to come in on the back to take in the fullness around the waist. So I decided to grab a piece of elastic. I marked it across my own back side, and then I went ahead and stitched that in just to bring it in a little because it was practically done. So I'm taking the ruffle now and just working on that, getting the actual gathering stitch in there to get that ruffle all ruffled up. So it's going to be the top part of the dress. The bust of the dress is the two sleeves. The sleeves were short sleeve, and the bottom of that top piece is the edge of the sleeve. So it's got a lot of fabric. It's nice and malleable. So I'm not spending a terrible too long time getting this to fit just right because I'm actually going to add straps and the ruffle. So I'm just going through and just getting rid of some of the fullness. Not really that concerned about how the darts look because you're never going to see them. I'm again working pretty quickly. I know this isn't fast forward, but I worked very quickly on this one because it just came together and I was tired of being unsuccessful. Those straps that I put in there, I actually really love those. You can't really see them here, but that yoke on the inside of the shirt had a striped pattern to it. So I left the stripe pattern as the strap, and I thought that was really cute. Something that you'd never know, but it is part of it. I do love inner details of shirts when they'll have something, a different color, a pop of color, or a collar, or a buttonhole, or something that just is, minute, but actually, I don't know, clever. Okay, so I've stitched this all together. It fits. I haven't decided how I'm going to close the back up yet. Get the skirt on there. Just trying to figure out now how everything's going to fasten together. Like I said, that skirt's going to have a little peekaboo cutout in the front, and it's going to be attached to the front under the bust. I stitched it all together. I was pretty confident once again that this is actually working out just as it should, which made me very happy. I'm getting rid of all the loose threads, one of my favorite steps. It's so relaxing and it just feels like there's some finality coming through. All right, so it's time to tackle that ruffle. I actually love to save things that, you may or may never use ever again. I'm sure a lot of you are like that if you're crafting type people. But I had these two ribbons that were attached to the outside of, I don't know, a sheet set, I think. And so they had Velcro on them, which I'm really happy they had the Velcro. I cut the Velcro off because I didn't need it for this when I wanted to stitch my, I wanted to secure my gathered stitches to a piece of fabric. So I chose that ribbon, but then I used the Velcro later. Again, something that I think I've had in my possession for over 3 years. I'm so happy when you hold on to crafting stuff and it actually is useful. It just, oh, it made my day. And it just made it so much easier to make this project. So now I'm just securing that ribbon to the ruffle, securing the ribbon to the ruffle. And it's perfect. It doesn't look like it's been gathered all that much, but it's gathered enough because when I attach this to the straps, you'll see some nice little pleating in there. And it had to stay loose enough. I wanted it to stay off the shoulder and be able to still move. So that was something. So I'm just determining where it needs to go. Try it on my body. Don't need to try the skirt on. And then I decided to take, again, an old bra that I had lying around just to use for scraps. And I attached the clasp of the bra to the back of this top. I wanted it to be secure and I also didn't want you to see it, but I get really annoyed with eye hooks. I hate sewing them into garments. I'm not very good at it. I'm not a great hand sewer. So I placed this on the piece and then I stitched it a flap long enough to go over top of it. And then I used that Velcro that I had laying around to secure the back. Couldn't be any simpler. I'm so happy with the way that turned out. So I stitched that in, folded that flap over, and now I'm going in and making the bottom seam of the bottom hem of this dress. I am a self-taught sewer, so I don't use technical terms as often as one should. So do forgive me if you come from the school of sewing and you just like nails on a chalkboard whenever I misuse terms. I'm trying my best to describe what I'm doing and what I'm using and what I did. There I am finding that Velcro and placing it on there. This one was actually quite a joy to make. It really was. When something comes together and you feel it and you sense it and you know there's an end game and you're gonna make that end game and you're gonna have something that you're actually gonna love. There's a lot to be said for that. We made it to the final reveal. I hope you're still here and I hope you love what I make. There's the two shirts and voila. Here they both are. Oh, I really love them, to be honest with you. I'm actually loving this one. Now that I styled her, I'm just a simple country girl. Where's that country? Italy, of course, or, maybe Florida, which is where I live. If you were wondering why I would make sundresses in the middle of December or the beginning of December anyways, here I am, and there she is. Let's go on to the second dress. Oh, I love her just as much as honestly, I might love the first one more, but we won't say anything about that because this one is also very cute, very comfortable, and I do love that back. I was actually just staring at my neighbor staring at me. But that back is really fun, and it's, like I said, really comfortable. Again, sitting down, enjoying the day. Trying to find my light. Never did find it, but that's okay. Thank you so much for joining me. See you next time.